Andrew Frankel is going to try and name every Le Mans winning car from 1923 right the way up until 2021. Andrew, I will jump in if you get one wrong in your own time. Off you go.
Okay, so we start in 1923, the first ever Le Mans, which was won by a Chenard et Walker. I don't know whether the pronunciation of that is right, but it's good enough for me. 1924, first Bentley win. Wasn't a works team, but it was works prepared. John Duff, Frank Clement driving that car. 1925, 1926 were won by a French brand called Lorraine Dietrich. 1927, to this day, there has never been a greater winning margin than the margin won by Bentley over Ross Salmson in 1927. 1928, Bentley again, Wolf Bonato, Bernard Rubin won the race with the cracked chassis that had pulled all the water out. So they basically had an air-cooled Bentley when they came over the line. No water in the radiator at all, but and it expired almost immediately after, but they did that. 1929, total Bentley walkover. The cars were literally going so slowly that one of their drivers, called Jack Dunfrey, said to W.O. Bentley, "What do you want me to do? Get out and push the bloody thing." 1930, Bentley's last, great battle between the Bentley team and Rudolf Caracciolo's SSK Mercedes. 1931, Earl Howe and Tim Birkin again in the first of a few Alfa Romeo victories. So it goes Alfa 31, 32, 33, 34. 35, Lagonda, M45R, Johnny Hindmarsh, Louis Fontes, both of them tragically killed very soon after. Johnny Hindmarsh in 1938 testing a Hurricane, Louis Fontes in 1940 delivering a Wellington to Landau. Louis Fontes, although he didn't sound it, was British as well. So where does that take us to? 1936. This is the great Le Mans trick question. Who won Le Mans 1936? The answer is no one did, because there wasn't one. There was a strike at the time, so forget that. 1937, Bugatti. 1938, Delahaye. 1939, Bugatti. Then there was the inconvenience of World War II, which stopped all play at Le Mans until 1949. 1949, Ferrari's first win, but not a works entry, but the entry of Luigi Chinetti and Lord Selsdon. Chinetti drove 21 hours after Selsdon got sick. It was, other than the Chenard Walk, which won the first ever Le Mans, so I guess that counts, but it was the first time a marque had won Le Mans at the first time of asking, and I think it's only happened once since. 1950, Largo Talbot. 1951, first the Jaguar wins in the C-Type, the original prototype C-Type, XKC W03, as you're asking, on drum brakes. 1952, that's when poor Pierre Levesque, also in a Largo, so nearly won it. He did 22 and a half hours solo, and he would have won the race, but he missed a gear and blew it up. He drove because he thought the car had a mechanical fault and that his teammate, whose name I do forget, wouldn't have had the mechanical sympathy to drive around it. So he said, "You're not driving, I'll do the whole thing myself." Won by a Mercedes 300 SL. Pierre Levesque sadly being much more famous for the bloke who died in the 1955 Le Mans crash, which I'll get to in a minute. 1953, the second of the C-Type wins, now using disc brakes. Duncan Hamilton and Tony Rolt, no, they weren't drunk, despite all the stories to the contrary. 1954, Ferrari's second win, very wet race this one. Maurice Trintignant and the great Argentine Froilán González beating Rolt and Hamilton by that stage in a prototype D-Type into second place. 1955, the worst, most tragic accident in motor racing history. Over 80 people died when Levesque's car went into the crowd. Most people think that Mike Hawthorne slowing his Jaguar for the pits, which was actually literally part of the track at the time, just to the side, was the primary cause of that. 1956, that was a private win. That was an Acuria Cos win, also Jaguar D-Type. Ron Flockhart and Ninian Sanderson. 1957, Flockhart again in another Acuria Cos D-Type, but this time driving with either the driver, Bueb. 1958, Ferrari Testarossa. 1959, Carroll Shelby, Rolls-Royce Salvadori, Aston Martin DBR1. Aston Martin winning Le Mans for the first time in 10 attempts under John Wyer. Won the World Sports Car Championship that year too, still to this day easily Aston Martin's greatest era of competition success. Then we go into the Ferrari era. 1960, 61, 62, 63, 64, all works Ferrari wins. 1965 was a private Ferrari win, the North American Racing Team entry of Jochen Rindt and Maston Gregory. That was the one which Ferrari didn't want them to win because they had the wrong tyres on it, and he wanted the Belgian car, which was on the right tyres, which was coming second, and he went to, funny enough, Luigi Chinetti and told him to slow his cars down to let the Belgian car through it, and Chinetti told him what to do with that idea. Obviously, 64, 65 should have been the years that for the Ford GT40 swept all before them, but they, how can I put this, screwed up both times. 64, understandable to the new, 65, they should have won, but didn't. And then we do enter the Ford era, 66, 67, 68, 69, GT40, 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 GT40. The last one being Ix and Oliver in what is to date still the closest non-staged finish of the race. And if you remember, that was the year of the last running start across the track, which Jackie Ix thought was such a stupid thing to do. He walked, and so he got away last, and he only won the race by, I think, 150 yards. So he must have been thinking about that in the last few laps of that race. Beat Hans Hermann in a Porsche 908 into second place. 1970, obviously Richard Atwood and the aforementioned Hans Hermann in the first of the Porsche victories. Porsche 917, terribly wet race again, totally unfancied car. It was the slowest 917 of the works team. I think qualified 14th, 4.5 litre engine, not 5, 4-speed box, not 5, but they were just captain consistencies, and they just drove through all that, and they made no mistakes, and they won the race. 1971, I talked about this on the Instagram site last week. Helmut Marko and Gijs van Lennep averaging over 138 in the Martini 917 with its magnesium frame, which they didn't know about. And then they obviously outlawed the 917s because they're going to win everything. So there was a 3 litre formula, and then so the next 3 years it was Matra. The wonderful V12 3 litre Matras. If you've never heard one, go onto YouTube and listen to one now. I still think it's the greatest sound any car has ever made. Which takes us to 1975. That was the first of the Ix Bell victories, but in a John Wyer run Mirage with a Cosworth DFV in the back. 1977, so we're back into Porsches now, Porsche 936, 77, and no, it wasn't 78, was it? Because the 78, well, no, 70, hang on, no, 76 was the Porsche, 77 was the Porsche, 78 was the Alpine Renault, which we know about. 79, Porsche again. 80, Rondo, Jean Rondo, still, I think, the only person to win Le Mans in a car of his own name and creation. 81, they dig a 936 literally out of the museum, and Ix and Bell go and win it again. Completely trouble-free race, destroyed everyone. 1982, obviously, we have Group C, and now actually from 81 to 87, can I just say Porsche, because it goes 936, 956, 956, and then 962, 96, 92, 96, all the way to 1987. And if I don't sort of sweep through these a bit quickly, people are going to get frightfully bored. 1988 Jaguar. Yay, I was there. First Le Mans I attended. Last Le Mans of the old pits, XJR9, Jan Lammers, Andy Wallace, Johnny Dumfries, the late Johnny Dumfries, finally, because they'd won the championship the year before, but not Le Mans, delivering Jaguar the victory that a lot of us have been waiting for. 89 Mercedes-Benz, Sauber Mercedes. 90 Jaguar, again with the XJR 12. 91 first Japanese victory, Volker Wiedler, Berkentron Gasher, and our own Johnny Herbert. Fascinating race, not nearly enough time to go into what happened, which allowed them to win, but yeah, really, really interesting race. 30 years ago now, blimey. I do know what happened next, but I don't know the details, because 92 and 93 were the Peugeots, the 905s, wasn't particularly interested in those. 94 is an interesting one, because it was the Dower, the 964, the Dower Porsche 962, which is the real, Porsche have always been world class at getting around the rules before, but that was their ultimate rule dodge. And again, not nearly enough time to explain what went on there, but it was quite a cool win. 95 McLaren's in the wet, lots and lots of McLarens, and it was going to be the Harrods car of Andy Wallace and Bell Senior and Junior, but then there was the not works honest Ueno Clinic car, which came through, JJ later in the wet. Who could ever forget that? And they won that. First time a Japanese, Masanori Sakia won that. First time a Japanese driver had won Le Mans. 96 and 97, I've been writing about those two races quite a lot on the app recently. That was the not Jaguar TWR WSC 95 Porsche that won both those races, despite the fact that its life had started in 1991 as an XJR 14. It had actually gone, that actual chassis 691, had gone to Le Mans, and Andy Wallace had gone out in practice, gone 3 seconds faster than anybody else, and they just stuck it back on the track just to go, oh, we can do that. And they didn't bother racing the car because they didn't think it would last, but did with a Porsche engine and open bodywork. That actual chassis did win Le Mans twice in 96 and 97. 98, Porsche GT1 98 finally won it. 99 BMW. Nobody remembers that BMW won Le Mans in 99. I never understood why I think they went off and did Formula One, didn't they? But it was just such a shame. That's the kind of lost Le Mans to be. And then we enter the Audi era, and I'm going to skip through this because it just goes, with the exception of, 2000, 2001, 2002, Audi, Bentley, 2003, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Audi, 9, Peugeot, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, Audi. And then you get Porsche in 15, 16, 17, and Toyota 18, 19, 20, and 21. The end.
Faultless. Absolutely spot on. That was unbelievably impressive. And I have just one question.
Go on.
Why?
Why do I know all that rubbish? Goodness knows, I haven't got a clue. I mean, it's just a lifetime of just collecting. I was all, when I was a kid. I guess it's because when I was a kid, I was just, funnily enough, I'd probably given more details on Bentleys in the 1920s than anything else, and that was just my thing. I don't know why. There was something, Boy's Own, the tales of daring do from back then. I think a lot of us who are passionate about anything, they're usually just one particular thing in that area that you pick up on. I picked up on that, and that was all about Le Mans. So I've just been, because of that, frankly, I've just been interested in Le Mans ever since. I can do it. What value? That's probably the first time in my life that information has been of any value to me at all. Yeah.